the state's decision to prosecute the applicant for the death of Mr. Timol and the applicant's assertion that he is entitled to a permanent stay of prosecution. The applicant alleges that the delay occasioned in respect of the prosecution he faces has resulted in an infringement of his right to a fair trial in terms of Section 35, subsection 3 in brackets, close brackets of the Constitution. This case comes before this court after the reopening of an inquest from 1972 in 2017 following Mr. Timol's death. The 1972 inquest found that Mr. Timol had committed suicide and no one was responsible for his death. The 2017 inquest, however, found that Mr. Timol was indeed murdered. In an unanimous judgment, to which I shall refer now, the court has considered the criteria for determining an application for permanent stay of prosecution. These are the length of the delay, the reasons the government relies on to justify the delay, the applicant's assertion of a right to a speedy trial, the prejudice to the applicant, the nature of the offense, and public interest. This court also identified a new factor for consideration, namely the interest of the family, victims, or survivors of the crime. While the delay was indeed a lengthy one, not all of it was culpable in nature, as much of it occurred during the apartheid era as well as during the process when the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was engaged in dealing with the crimes of the past. It was a period from 2003 to 2017 that was largely in focus and during which political interference resulted in inaction on the part of the prosecuting authority. The court takes the view that this interference was not warranted and served to undermine the independence of the NPA and directs that the conduct of the relevant officials and officers at the time need to be brought to the attention of the National Director of Public Prosecutions for her consideration so that she may take the necessary action. With regard to the applicant's allegation that he suffers memory loss as a result of his age and will therefore be prejudiced, this court finds that the age and infirmity are factors to be considered at sentencing stage. This court finds that there is no trial prejudice to the applicant. This court holds that while the delay in the prosecution has caused some measure of prejudice, it cannot be said to taint the fairness of the trial. This court finds that the interest of justice and societal need to ensure accountability for the commission of serious offenses and the nature of the crime located in its historical context all militate against the granting of a permanent stay of prosecution. This, in many respects, is a difficult case, not necessarily on account of the legal issues it raises, but rather to the extent that it compels us to revisit our troubled past, examine what occurred there, recognize the need for reconciliation and the consequences that invariably went with it. Importantly, this case reaffirms that justice and the truth were never meant to be compromised during all that our young society sought to do in dealing with its troubled past, turbulent and shameful. The refusal of a permanent stay of prosecution is not signaling that we are required to be vengeful to those who are alleged to have committed serious crimes in the past, but rather an affirmation that the principles of accountability and responsibility for the breaching of the rules of society stand at the doorway of our new constitutional order. Reverting to the judgment, in terms of the judgment, the following order is made. The application is dismissed. 2, no order is made as to costs. I hand down the judgment. Okay. The court will adjourn briefly.
Well, there you have it. João Rodriguez's application for a permanent stay of prosecution has not been granted, and that process, we will continue to unpack it as the day unfolds. Let's go back to Parktown, where the State Capture Commission is also underway.
Any official at the South African High Commission in New Delhi, we had handed over our documents, the passport plus the other documents, to Mr. Lakshmi Go.
Sure, bro. Please grab here. Yes. Manda. Manda. No, we can't do that. No, we can't do that.